Never use adverbs. Okay. This advice doesn't work on many levels. First of all, you can't eliminate an entire section of the language. Adverbs make up like what? There are adjectives, verbs, nouns, and adverbs. So according to basic math, adverbs make up 25% of the English language. 25%, for God's sake. The question isn't whether we should use adverbs or not, rather it's in restraint. I agree that dotting your writing with adverbs will make it clunkier, and that adverb-first mentality is damaging to creativity, but there's no denying that adverbs can be useful when properly utilized. The question is in when to use adverbs and how often to use them. Stephen King has once said, and I think this is one of my favorite quotes, "All I ask is that you do as well as you can, and remember that while to write adverbs is human, to write he said or she said is divine." You must read the classics to write. I agree that you should read in order to write, but I don't agree with the sentiment that one must read the classics in order to write. That's a lot of my asshole. There is absolutely no reason to read the classics if you want to write for a modern audience. Times change. That's a fact most don't understand when they vomit this advice. Of course you can read the classics, of course you can enjoy them, and of course you can prefer them to modern writing, but I will be damned if you tell me you must read the classics in order to write. I vehemently disagree with this. I've read some of Shakespeare's, and Charles Dickens is one of my all-time favorites, but I honestly don't think the way they wrote is fit for today's world. Times change, and how people speak, think, and behave nowadays, it's nothing similar to that of prior ages. Write a bad first draft. There is an argument to be had for this one, and I mostly agree with it. Writing a bad first draft is the first step to writing a good novel, but I don't agree with how people often interpret this advice. They often take it that writing a bad first draft is the goal. My dear, if you take a turd and you spend 100 years polishing its very edges, trying to make it perfect, you will still end up with a turd. I believe that if the core of the first draft is rotten, then those problems will persist onto the second draft. If you write the first draft without having a character arc in mind, guiding theme, or whatnot, things that are essential to laying out a strong foundation. In other words, if your foundation is not strong, your second draft won't fare any better, and so will your third and any drafts after that, unless you scrap the whole thing and start over, in which case you have now started a new first draft. Write a bad first draft with flawed prose. This is how people should take the advice. The goal is not to write a structurally disfigured first draft, it is to write a first draft with bad prose, not bad structure. Writing is a solitary job. I call this glorified nonsense. When I first heard this one, it was from Will Self, the writer of Great Apes. I have to first put it out there. The guy's prose is honestly amazing. Anyways, he once said that, quote, "The writing life is essentially one of solitary confinement. If you can't deal with this, you needn't apply." Quote. Writing is not a solitary confinement, and since I first heard Will Self claim that 2 years ago, I've stumbled upon many other authors who have a similar mindset. This is, in my honest opinion, just a terrible advice. I constantly engage in dialogue with myself and others about my writing and whether the characters as well as the events in the story are plausible. If you don't involve others, then you will end up writing works that are extremely disconnected from reality. The story is so impractical, so unapologetically out there and away from logic, and with no reality check, that they piss away any audiences at the synopsis. Even Charles Bukowski, the dirty grandpa of writing, has similar views where he once said, quote, "The crowd is the gathering place of the weakest. True creation is a solitary act." Quote. No thank you. Don't use dead language. Okay, a disclaimer first. I sort of agree with this advice. It's nifty and will definitely help you improve. That out of the way, whenever I've heard some established authors spout this advice, they always mean literally. Sometimes they don't, but most of the time, they advocate for a complete version of dead language. As is agreed upon by most linguists and novelists alike, dead language is language that tends to meander and is inefficient, like euphemisms. Reason why I disagree with not using euphemisms and language that drags on is honestly because it enhances dialogue. It is, to say it bluntly, subtext. And, at least for me, subtext is life. I indulge in subtext implications when I write my dialogue, and most of the time, that means my characters do not use direct, punchy language in order to communicate their point. They often beat around the bush, dragging the language, cowering behind euphemisms, and only use direct language when they are cornered. What I disagree with is the fact that there needs to be a complete shutdown of language that is inefficient. That is a load of something I don't agree with. I always use PC language in dialogue. Rarely do I use punchy words, and whenever I do, it's because PC language as well as euphemisms and language that tends to drag on is not effective. So let's rephrase this advice. Don't use dead language to narrate the story. However, using it in dialogue is fine. Reading equals writing. I think one must read to learn how to write. But that said, reading 10,000 novels will mean jack nothing if you never sit down to write. It's like watching movies or playing football. I watch football matches on a day-to-day basis and have seen Messi scribble fouls on the pitch, Cristiano Ronaldo stretch his mammoth all the way to the net, and Mohamed Salah sneak into the net like a mole rat. But am I as good as Messi or LeBron James or Mohamed Salah just because I watch them perform the respective mastery over their sports? Absolutely not. Reading will only help you become a better writer if you sit down and actually wrestle the keyboard. Otherwise, you will forever be as shitty as I am in football or basketball. Reading books won't translate to improvement unless you write, and write regularly, might I add. Thanks for watching and have a nice day. If you have made it so far, God bless you. I love you so much. You're amazing. You are honestly amazing. Please support me if you want to. I would very much appreciate that. I'm trying to grow my channel, but you know, it's proven to be difficult. Thank you very much.